And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear,
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing today in the book of Daniel. And let's see. Hold on just one second. Not quite there. All right. So let's read through the chapter like we do. And let's hear it again. And then we'll pick it up around verse 15. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which was in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, and northward, and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close to the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great, toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host of the stars of the ground, and stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. And by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days. Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. We're probably going to talk more about this still, because I'm not done. And it came to pass, when even I, Daniel, had seen the vision, and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid, and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground. But he touched me and set me upright. And he said, Behold, I will make thee to know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For at the time appointed the end shall be. The ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now having been broken, whereas four stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. He shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And the vision of the evening and the morning which he was told is true. Wherefore shut up the vision, for it shall be for many days. And I, Daniel, fainted, and I was sick certain days. Afterward I rose up and did the king's business. And I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. So, and to this day, it could be argued that, does anyone truly fully understand? Well, no, I don't understand it the way I'd like to. I understand a lot about it. I know a lot about it. I decided to refresh my knowledge on Antiochus Epiphanes, and mostly what I said was pretty much what there is to know. I mean, he came, but I can add this to it. It was the Seleucids. That was what governed over Syria, Palestine, and all that area. The Ptolemies were in Egypt, named after the general. I think it was Cassius in the north, and I forgot the other one already. It's harder to remember the name, but and unnecessary. But Antiochus, it's Antiochus for Epiphanes. I guess there were other ones. Hold on a second. But he's the one. If you look up Antiochus Epiphanes, as it's spelled. Sorry, I should be muting it. I was headed for the mute button. If you look him up, there's some good content on YouTube. In fact, the first thing I found was a guy who basically shares my view. He's neither completely futurist or completely preterist. He views it, which I think is the correct view, that the historical interpretations of the prophecies are typological, and that's actually, of course. They're not different. You've read Solomon, nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new there's nothing. I mean, we think about it. I don't mean things like this, and this isn't really new. I'm not talking about in the affairs of men. I mean, obviously this is new, but I mean the way people are, there's nothing new under the sun. Really. And it came to pass. Okay, wait. And so, yeah. But about Antiochus, it was interesting. He came up. He was trying to take some Egyptian territory. He was trying to increase his territorial possessions to the west and to the east and to the south and towards the Pleasant Land, of course, which he was technically ruling over. But when he was, the Romans basically did this. They sent this some ambassador to threaten him, and there's an interesting story about him drawing a circle around Antiochus, and he decides to withdraw from Egypt. Antiochus does, and that's when on his way withdrawing from Egypt, he attacks the Jews in Jerusalem. They don't want to be Hellenized. He kills something like 80,000 of them, I suppose. That's what I was told, and then I don't know if this is I don't know the exact timeline, but I do know that then thereafter, or at some point thereafter, he enters the sanctuary, erects a statue of Zeus, and offers a pig on the altar, an altar to Zeus, and he also, of course, proclaims himself God, which is exactly what Antichrist is supposed to do. And so it's very tempting. I understand why people want to, well, that's it. There you go. That's all that Daniel was talking about. That's all he was talking about. Except for the fact that the whole New Testament testifies that that there is an Antichrist to come, that it wasn't some historical figure long ago. Because the Maccabees deposed, the Maccabees in the Maccabean revolt. You can read about it in the Apocrypha. I think parts of it are in the Apocrypha, and other parts of it are somewhere else, like are not canonical. I mean, well, that's the whole Apocrypha isn't canonical, but it doesn't mean it's not of value. You know what I mean? But it's more of a historical book along the lines of the Kings or something like that. And they were there, well, and they cleansed the sanctuary. So it was, that's why there was a temple for the Messiah to come to. But it was already cleansed of the sacrifice and all that, and but it had its own cleansing it needed. And it's interesting that when Jesus came, he didn't come as the Jews hoped to bring revenge against the Gentiles, which he will do. He will revenge. He will take revenge on the Gentiles for all that they've mistreated the Jews. You can count on that. God will. But of course, those of us who have received Christ, we pass from judgment to life. We're not going to have anything to do with that. But at the end, Christ, when he returns, there's going to be an army that Satan leads out to meet him, or they think, or whatever. I mean, I don't know what lies he's going to tell them. It's obviously going to be built on lies, like everything he builds is built on lies. But he's going to go, and there's going to be a battle, Armageddon as it's called, right? And the blood is going to flow to the horse's bridle. I mean, at least in certain places. It's just a very stark picture of war. And so Antiochus doesn't really fill the prophecies. Now here he fills most of it, but not really entirely. I mean, I don't know, I wasn't there. But the impression I was given from the video I watched about Antiochus was that there's some, and maybe it's because that guy agrees with me, maybe he didn't go into detail. I would like to, if I was going to talk about that extensively as a historical thing, as opposed to a Bible study here, it would be interesting to know more of those details. Anyways, like as far as, maybe I should read that account. I would like to go and read that. I haven't read Maccabees. Now, I started reading them years ago. But I didn't, the Bible is kind of like, I always said we have so much to learn from just the scriptures we have. And I think that the seeking after more, we want, because we all want greater and more revelation, so to speak, of the truth, right? But what shape does that take? Is it just about, do I want to know more so I can prognosticate about the future? Is it curiosity about the past? I'm very curious about the past. I'm curious about the future. Who isn't? Who isn't curious about those things? Some people aren't, right? But even so, being curious about them, I don't, there can be a negativity to, intruding into things you don't know about and you don't see. Meaning, it's good to explore the unknown. I don't know why my monitor just, okay, there we go. It's good to explore the unknown, to read things we haven't read before, right? But sometimes, like we've read what sometimes the reason we're looking for more is because we don't really want to focus on what we're already reading. I think for me that definitely was true. When I was young, I used to read the Bible, and all I wanted to see was prophecy. When I would read like the New Testament, like the epistles, like left me cold. They didn't really speak to me at all. He just righteousness, whatever. It just went right over my head. I wanted to know about what these symbols mean and all that. That's all that stuff. I wanted to know and explore, and I was curious about the nature of angels and demons and things like that. It's natural to be curious about those things, but we have to recognize how limited we are. And if we don't recognize how limited we are, we're in danger of getting ahead of ourselves, as too far over your skis, so to speak, and you are intruding into things and talking about things in a way, like I know people who feel very strongly about certain peripheral biblical issues, and they make them almost like central. Because they think because it's so important. And what I realize, and to me, it just looks like, well, you're not really following Christ, are you? You're not really thinking about the things like that he focused on, like doing good, doing well, doing the right thing. We need to be reminded, I'll tell you what, to walk uprightly. It's good to remind yourself. And also, if you don't explore the scriptures, you won't really know where you're falling short, because that's where your schoolmaster is going to teach you. So you're falling short. We got to know it. I want to know it. If I go around ignorant of it, That's the knowledge I need. I need knowledge of how I'm falling short and how to overcome that. That's the most important kind of knowledge, and it's not in Maccabees. It's not in the Gospel of Thomas. It's not in. It's not. It's in Daniel a bit, though. I'll tell you that. And true prophecy, the spirit of true prophecy, is pointing to Christ, and that's why this is the thing. The thing that I was looking at this, I'm like, the subtext here of Christ is really interesting. What does the host refer to? It throws me off a bit. Throws me off. You know why it throws me off? Because they call the sacrifice of the Mass, they refer to the bread as the host. And I don't know why. You know what I mean? I don't know why. And I don't, maybe that's a bad memory on my part, like of Catholicism, because I don't, I think I remember they called it the host. I guess it's hosting. It's the thing. I guess that's the way of referring to it as, because I don't think it means in like this sense, but because it's connected with the sacrifice, it throws me off. Because it's like the sanctuary and the host. What host? Does it mean like there's something? Does it mean the sacrifice is being trodden underfoot? The sanctuary and the sacrifice itself. Is the sacrifice? Do they refer to that? I'm gonna look this up. Actually, I'm gonna look it up in Hebrew. I want to know. Does it mean just like a host of men? Because then I think, okay, it's the host of the Lord. It's the saints, of course. God's people. The host of them. And that, let me see here. A host, there we go. Let me get on the screen for you. Where am I? Okay, there we are. Sorry, I had it off in the wrong spot. All right. Sabah. TSB. Why is this being so difficult? Come on. Maybe if I move it, it insists on putting the ad there. Oh well. Okay, I'm just gonna have to do a little adjustment here. There, now I got the ad off my screen. Prime Day. Wow, Amazon. Or at least they're advertising on a Bible site, I guess. Army, warfare. Yeah. Host, it means like an army. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't scroll it. Not a host as in something that hosts something. And I don't think the Catholic host is an army. I'm not going to look that up now, or whatever. I'll probably look it up after the study. I might mention it tomorrow, but whatever. It's a host of men. So this would be the godly host. What else would he be trying? Is it the angels that he cast down to the ground? Because it says the host is going to be trodden underfoot. I don't know. The stars of heaven. And that's it. That's the 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches. And we often, so it's a symbolic connection that exists. It's not like reaching too far. But again, like I said, I just don't make it the center of your faith. To give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. Okay. The transgression of desolation. It's called the abomination of desolation in chapter 9. The abomination that maketh desolate. But the desolation is of the altar and of the sanctuary of God. That is what is made desolate. And what does that word mean? I think it is similar. I think this is that word. Desolation. And I could have got a sneak peek. Shamem. To be desolated or appalled. The appalling thing. I like that would be a good way to translate it. Like it's that thing that causes one to be appalled. It's the kind of thing, like at the desolation thereof, so to speak. Your highways shall be desolate. It all depends on how it's being used, right? And so in this context, I would think of it as desolation, which is fine. But again, you think of it just as breaking things, but it's the appalling destruction. But it's not just because it's being destroyed; it's because it's being corrupted. And of course, remember the idea of treading underfoot is a metaphor. It's you don't have to literally trod someone underfoot to tread them underfoot. Like it talks about grinding the faces of the poor. It doesn't mean that the poor are literally having their faces grinded, but It's a metaphor. It's a word picture or an idiom. Is that an idiom? No, I don't think so. An idiom is, I forget. I know how to, but there are all those things, metaphors, idioms, symbols. And the idea of treading underfoot is what? Well, when you trample something underfoot, it's like, what do you tread under your feet? What do you stomp on? Bugs, maybe compacting some trash, right? That's what I use when I tread on something, I'm like, trying to, I remember I used to step on my cigarettes when I smoked and smush them in the ground, put them out, right? So the idea of being trodden underfoot like that, I mean, it could literally be also like when you're dead, people walk over you sometimes, that's what happens. Or sometimes they trample the dead, there's a way of disrespecting the dead. That also happens, And he said to me, unto 2,300 days. Again, we talked about the 2,360 days in the Bible, the 3.5 years. It'll mention the sevens and the 7 years later on, but there is a 3.5 year period and there's a 7 year period. And it's unclear to me if I do personally, my personal thought on the 3.5 years is that there was 3.5 years that was Jesus' ministry, and there was another 3.5 years that's the end times. And they make 7 altogether, even though they're separated by thousands of years. But that, to me, it makes sense prophetically because a lot of things are like that prophetically. Meaning there are prophetic passages that jump from, the first advent to the second advent without any space in between. So I said, this is part of the mysteries. So I say it's a mystery. The millennium was not, being a 1,000-year period and all that. A lot of that is not revealed until Revelation. The two resurrections is a mystery revealed in Revelation that Jesus himself does not really make mention of. And it's the only way you can understand certain things he says. Well, it's a proper way to understand. It helps you properly understand certain things he says, I think, in my opinion. Especially when he talks about the things he says, like in Matthew chapter 5. Or no, I mean, like when he talks about, it slipped my mind, sorry. When Jesus talks about what? I'm gonna ferret this out. It's useful. What's useful, Paul? Let's just move on. It'll come to me. And it came to pass when even I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. Notice, as the appearance of a man. But this, I believe, is the person who's Gabriel, right? And then he hears between the banks of the river this voice, like there's someone out in the river, basically, right? Which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. A voice came, and it was presumptively God, we think, right? So Gabriel approaches, and when he comes, Daniel was afraid and fell upon his face. It doesn't say, this reminds me of the scenes in Revelation, and where they say, see thou do it not. I fell on my face to worship him, he said, in the other places. Here it's for fear. It's not necessarily worship. It's like he kind of, men do obeisance before authority very often. And it's not the same as worship, though it surely seems like it, right? I mean, kowtow, bang your head on the floor type thing. It seems inappropriate. The things Jesus, yeah. What was it? It's when he says, oh yeah, there's like a passage, and I'm trying to remember exactly how it's worded, where he basically, it sounds like there's no break between the judgment of the wicked and the judgment of the righteous. He'll talk about those things in context as if they're just one right after the other, or they happen at the same time. He doesn't say they happen at the same time. He doesn't say that there are two separate judgments. But the truth is, when he talks about it, he mentions two things. He just doesn't mention that they happen at different times. And those are the passages I'm talking about. And in Matthew specifically, I think 25 is the one I'm thinking of, because of the way it seems like, hey, Jesus comes and then it's the end. There's no millennium at all. That's why people are amillennial, because there's a lot of passages where you could say, look, there's no millennium. The problem is you're talking about a progressive revelation, and things aren't always spelled out for you. If you look, like I said, when we look at the prophecies of the Old Testament, it's not obvious that every prophecy of Messiah was about the Messiah. There are a lot that are obviously about the Messiah, like this. Like when it talks about the Prince of Princes. Who are they talking about? Daniel doesn't, there's no Prince of Princes in the world of Daniel. Who is this Prince of Princes? Who is this King of Kings? I mean, it's the Lord, of course. And Daniel probably does understand in some sense because the prophets already have the idea of Messiah. And he's going to talk about Messiah coming up. Unto Messiah, the Prince, He introduces us probably more clearly than anyone to Messiah. I mean, that's the thing, is they had an idea of who Messiah would be, the kind of person. And you notice that he is, like in that vision where we saw the Ancient of Days and the one like the Son of Man. That's the Messiah too. Not just because I'm not just me saying that's Jesus, or that's in Daniel's mind. That is that figure. That man who is godlike. That man who is like no other, who can take the book from the right hand of the one that sits on the throne. The one who said, "It is not mine to give, who may sit on my right hand and on my left." Because there's some limit there. He obeys the Father. The Father is the leading will. That's clear. The Spirit has a will of its own, his own, sorry. The Father has a will of his own. When you say the Spirit, it's like he never gave us a name. I wish he had, so I'd be more easy to remember. When you say the Spirit, it flows right off your tongue. So, I don't mean that, though. I mean he is a person. It's okay to call the Holy Spirit it, too, by the way. It's fine. God is not, unless you're insisting that he's not a person by doing so. It's just a force. It's just a force. No, it's not just a force. The Holy Spirit has very clearly its own individual. It's not quite as starkly clear as the Father and Son distinction. That's true. But it is also clear. It is made clear in the most key moments, like the baptism of Jesus. And also the way the spirits of God are portrayed as distinct from God. Why not? Why does that happen? Why is God's Spirit portrayed as somehow distinct from God? From the Father, I should say. That's the part. It's like the language gets very difficult. Because we're talking about one God. Christians do not have three gods. People say that, they don't understand. No, we have something that is more deep than that. It's not three gods. If they said three-headed God, it would be a little more close to the truth, but that's not. That's sort of a chimeric description that I would not like. But I'll say it's a little more fair. It's like a negative interpretation that actually makes sense. It's like I could see someone simplifying it that way in a crude way meant to insult Christians. So, but again, I'm like, okay. At least you're characterizing our beliefs in a way that is closer to what they are than the idea of three gods. I don't like saying, people say, you worship three gods. No. It's complicated, but no. So, Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the visions. See, Son of Man is the way they refer to humans. That's why when Jesus came to the earth, he called himself the Son of Man all the time, because he's like, I'm the human now. It was new to him. So as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face. So basically, when he was so afraid, he didn't bow to worship necessarily. Or even to kowtow sort of before something powerful that frightened him. But apparently he passed out or something. He immediately fell forward onto his face and went to sleep. He was terrified. He went down on his face, and there he was asleep. That's what happened. So... that's, I think, why the angel doesn't say, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren, the prophets. Worship God, Whereas it happens twice in Revelation, where in John, but he very clearly, John says, I fell down to worship at their feet. You may find yourself on your face for other reasons, As he was speaking to me, but he touched me and set me upright. So he touched me and got me up, put me on my feet. And he said, "Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation." That's an interesting point, too. I don't know what to make about that, but there's something there. It, like, has a significance. Because it's like, I don't know. It's like what God does. You know, he sets us on our feet. We have fears, and the Lord sends his angels to comfort us. Set us on our feet and send us on our way. You know, God is here to help. He does put challenging challenges before us. But also, you know, when we're faithful, he will use us, you know, when he needs us. And will do with us such things as we hope, you know. I mean, because I didn't get into the faith to be a do-nothing Christian. I like that I don't have to go through a preacher. I don't have to go through a priest. I can go directly to God. And it's with him that I have a relationship. Not that I'm saying that there's no place for mentoring or teachers. Of course there is. But I am not the mediator of anyone's relationship with God. That's their thing, you know. But sometimes it seems like with religion, you know, people try to get in between. Where like your only real relationship you don't have a relationship with God, you have a relationship with a pastor, and maybe not even a good one. You know, I mean, maybe my relationship with God is I go and listen to a pastor talk once a week, and leave some money in the basket like a good, you know, person in society or something like that. You know, without, because some people go and I do they know why they go? I don't know. Maybe they probably do. They probably do. They need more religion in their lives. My only reason to go to church would be to serve. And there are not many places where I'm welcome to do that. So there's like the gifts and calling of God. I will make you to know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. The last end of the indignation, for the time appointed, the end shall be. At the time appointed, it's going to come to an end. You know, like I said, it's either the end of, because Antiochus ended, you know, Rome ended, Nero ended, all that ended. But the world didn't end. And there is an ultimate end. There's an ultimate end of the indignation. There's an ultimate judgment. That God didn't make this world just to set it on its way. God made it and put man upon it. And he's raising up sons. That's the whole reason the world is here, to raise sons. It's kind of like what I do. I farm human beings. You know, I'm a human farmer. That's what I do. And God himself also, he created man in his own image for a reason, to bring that being into fellowship with himself. But in order to do that on a level, you know, he wants to do it on this amazing level where we become better than the angels or whatever, you know, and like getting into higher order of creature, you know, becoming something even more than that, for having been raised this way. And he raises us up literally as children, literally from the dead, and literally from our faces. When our faces are buried in the ground, it is God that will lift you up. You know, humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, he will lift you up. The last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be. You know, I meant to do is, I said collar last time and bile. I just wanted to check the definition on that. I'm just curious what the Hebrew word in verse 7 is, and I got it right here. It's not going to take long. With collar, where's the word? There it is. What is it? It's probably going to be bile or something like that. To be bitter. Yeah, bitterness. And I think in English we think of collar as, yeah, there it goes. To be, here's, see what it means is, in this Brown Driver Briggs, that's your, I thought about making a video where I take all the tools on it and I could show how you can use them in here. And that's, maybe I'll do that sometime. But it becomes roused of bile. Yeah, it actually has that in there. It means late Hebrew, Assyrian, mararu, and derivatives, to become roused by bile. Assuming bile. Because that's what they used to think, the bitterness within. And that's true. When I feel bitter, boy, yeah, that can be anger-inducing. The bitterness. Like it makes your belly bitter. Right? The book you ate. It's the bitterness that one finds. Bitterness is seen as coming from the gut. Not again. I speak of the gut as a function of the mind, not as the physiological part of your body that eats food. I'm just talking about the metaphorical way the body is spoken of, just like the passion of my heart and the feelings of my gut. That's real, because that's how it speaks. So you have to understand it on those terms. Otherwise, you're just going to be, people who like to say the Bible should be taken literally. It's like not all the time. Not all the time. Like none of this is literal, and they know that. They know that. So of course, but there's context. But other things like Genesis, we got to take that literally. Everything in it literally. I take much of it literally, of course, because most of it's meant to be taken literally, but some of it's not, and it's disrespectful to the author to not seek out their intent. You know what I mean? What did they intend? Like when Jesus told parables, he intended fiction. It's wrong to try to place reality, the demands of reality, on the parables. The ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. And he explains it. The rough goat is the king of Greece. Media and Persia. I was thinking about that. Yeah, because the two empires. Bullinger had said Cyrus was the great, the second king and better. But it might just mean Media and Persia is the greater power in the two. You know what I mean? The great horn represents the first king of the Greek Empire, which is, of course, Alexander the Great. We talked about that. And then the four came up, but not in his power, of course. Latter time of their kingdom. When transgressors are coming to the full. This is what I was talking about yesterday. The latter time of their kingdom is kind of still going on. The college I went to, the sororities all used Greek letters for some reason. The civilization of Greece is very tied to our civilization, the Enlightenment, and a lot of ideals. There's a reason our architecture looks Greco-Roman. Like in the Capitol, it's intentional. They were drawing on those traditions, and so we wanted stuff to look that, because it gave it a look of ancient majesty and eternal sort of, I don't know, maybe not eternal, but it spoke to that sort of grand design of the ancient world, when they, in the columns and stuff like that. It was just something that we took off of Greece, and the Romans took off of them. And, their culture and civilization, the Hellenization of the Jews. The Romans became Hellenized and then Romanized everyone else. And even the faith that I was born into has been Romanized. It's all part of the same thing. And so that verse is still trailing on. The latter time of their kingdoms. Sure, at the latter time of the Seleucid kingdom came Antiochus, and then pretty soon the Romans came and did him in. I don't know if they actually killed. I forgot. I didn't see to where he ended. I know they eventually cleansed the sanctuary. I should have gone that far. It's so busy. I'm telling you. The rough goat. Okay. For kingdoms, not his power, latter time of their kingdoms, when transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance, and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. So a king of fierce countenance. Now again, I don't think there's really that much to explore in Antiochus Epiphanes. As a type, yes, but I don't know that if you're going to look in history and get any better insights on Antichrist than we already have. Because sometimes I've seen this happen where people try to go too fine on the detail. And that's where they always get into trouble. Like, okay, let's, they'll look at now. I remember this is the trap that Arnold Murray fell into. And God forgive him. but and led him to false prophecy. So it was claimed that in 1980 the devil was going to come. The Antichrist would appear. He predicted that positively. I have a thing on my website, but it's basically because he looked at the wars that the Jews were fighting, and he compared it to the wars in the with the king of Babylon or something like that. Back in the day, I forget the exact. He talks about it on the thing, on the tape. I did a page where I go through it, but I haven't thought about it in years, and I don't like to think about these kind of things, honestly. But he did this overlay. He called it an overlay where the events, the timeline matched up. And so he thought, wow, well, what happens next? The king of Babylon comes to Jerusalem. So that means, so that's where he got. So he went into all these, gets too detailed, and then off in the weeds. And a couple of years ago, people were telling me about this star thing with the alignment of Virgo and all, and something's happening. And you know what? Nothing happened. Nothing. Zilch show. So, yes, things changed. Things are always changing. Like I said, it's the dog barks at the moon and it thinks, or barks at the sun and thinks it's making it set because it's going away and he's barking at it. But that doesn't mean nothing. So, when the king of fierce countenance, what's that mean? He's a fierce face. I don't think that necessarily, well, it's a matter of perspective. I'm sure like you think about a guy like Gavin Newsom. I think he looks like a sleazy and slimy, slippery sleaze, I guess. That's all, whatever. He looks really, really evil to me. But I'm sure to the people who vote for him, I think they think he's probably a hero or something. They look at him and he's their handsome leader. It all depends on your, that smile to one person that makes them feel good. To other person, it's a hard, cold, evil, wicked smile, when it's your enemy. And so, having a fierce countenance, what, well, actually, I always saw it, I always like this verse because I even though it's about the Antichrist, I want to understand dark sentences and have a fierce countenance. It's like, because I kind of do have a fierce countenance. I can look not, my face gives itself to anger well, but who doesn't? I don't know. Everyone's face, when it gets angry, don't they look fierce? Oh, so I'm going to look this up here. Oh, where is it? A king of fierce countenance. Okay, there we go. Fierce is, again, it's more like, strong would be a better translation. Countenance, of course, is face. So I'm going to it means face. With a strong face. Or mighty. So fierce, again, may not be capturing. Now, look at the different ways it's translated, though. Sometimes it's translated greedy, but it has an asterisk after. I don't know if that maybe means wrong. Fierce men, greedy, insolent, mighty, power, raging, roughly. Sorry, I didn't have that. I don't know where my screen is. There we go. Okay, there's where it is. So I got to put it right there. These are the way it's translated in the NASB. In the King James, it's translated fierce. It goes with greedy or something. Mighty, power, roughly, strong. So, all that means is they have a mighty face. You know what I mean? That's what I said, like that. Leaders, they in America in the age, this visual age, all the leaders try to look good. And I think what this means, he's going to have a strong face. Satan's supposed to be beautiful. And if it isn't literally Satan, his Antichrist is also going to be one hell of a good-looking guy. I can promise you that. I'm pretty sure. He's going to be good. He has a strong face. Harsh, maybe. Sure. Maybe a hard face. I always thought, Jesus has a very fierce countenance, I think. When I look at him, like as far as that looks strong, I get powerful. But he doesn't use it that way. You know what I mean? Like that, and that's why I think this idea of fierce countenance You know, there's this thing in the Psalms and in all the scriptures where it says God turn his face on you and cause his light to shine upon you. You know, we want God to look at us. That's something that the scriptures talk about, metaphorically. God looks at us, and that's good. We don't want him to look away from us or turn his back on us or go away from us. So a king with a fierce countenance, that means his face is set. He's got his eyes open and on you, and they are, and it's a face of, that's a war face, if anything, a face that's fierce, strong, resolute, powerful. That's what his face has. And the fact that his face that's how he looks at the world. He isn't causing his light to shine on anybody. He's causing his fierceness to shine when he puts his face out there. I mean, you see, even look at Joe Biden, what he tried to do. He tries to actually cultivate this dark Biden metaphor, image, where it's like, he did that one speech where he had the blood red background, and he was shaking his fist about MAGA people and all that. I mean, it was kind of stupid and hilarious at the same time, but also, like, you realize that's the way a fiercely countenanced ruler talks. He talks fiercely about his own people, even. Thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people. Joe Biden sounds a lot like Antichrist, doesn't he? I mean, as far as like he's an Antichrist-like figure, that's for sure. He's nothing but a deceiving, whoremongering, old coot. Sorry, I don't usually like to call people names, but I will that guy. I shouldn't say old coots, though. Old coots are all right. I like old coots. Shouldn't put it with those other, right? I'm going to be an old coot someday, probably, and I don't think I want to put that in the same boat with Joe Biden. I don't even mention his unfortunate mental decline, because I think that's wrong. I will mention, it's okay to mention it. He shouldn't be president because he's mentally not what he used to be, which was never much. A plagiarist should, I mean, truthfully, I get it. What, people didn't want Donald Trump to become president, but Joe Biden's everything that guy is and worse. He's a plagiarist. How can you ever trust someone? He's a thief of other people's words. A person that dishonest is going to just steal. Well, actually, it says that their business is extortion. That's what Joe Biden's business is. It's extortion. Extorting money from people overseas and enriching himself, all in the name of your government. Isn't that wonderful? I feel so enriched by the experience. And so, so he has a fierce countenance. So like I said, you can kind of tell, like Epiphanes turned on the Jews who were kind of his people. He was supposed to be ruling over them, right? But he didn't give any accommodation to their religion. He wanted to Hellenize them. And that was what he insisted on it. It's the first, they were, the thing, and honestly, that's going on right now. That's going on right now. It's not Hellenization. I was going to try some word of hell on it. It's Hellization, or it's Sodomization. Everything's turning into Sodom. Everything's turning into Gomorrah. And I mean, especially the totalitarianism has Sodom was not about the gay thing, though it was gay, yeah, right? It's like, but it wasn't, that's not what it was really. You have that all over the world, and God doesn't send meteors to take those people out. In Sodom, it was a different story. It was especially because they wanted to rape people. We got to know you. We got to come into the house and take you out, and we're going to get to know you right now. The most intimate way possible. But we have leaders that are, we're looking around us and we see leaders that are it would make sense that as you come to Antichrist, look at those 10 kings are probably Antichrist-like figures. There are going to be 10 world rulers who are just about, you look at them and you think, oh, maybe they could be Antichrist. We should see a rise of something like that. And then appears the little horn. Why is it? Is it littler than the other ones? I don't think so. Well, it is in the vision, of course. But I mean, it doesn't mean he's a little man. You know what I mean? Why is it described as little? Because it does. Because I would say that while not outwardly like other leaders, as far as like classic kings, who are, who turn outward and make war on their neighbors, and and then try to rule their kingdoms well and all that stuff. It is the picture of a ruler who has grown exceedingly insane with power. You know what I mean? And as people use more and more power, like drug addicts, they crave more and more power and delight. I mean, it's got to give them a colossal boost. I was going to use something more profane to know that like when I say like, give me $1 million, or you're gonna be sorry if I ever get back into office, because we will do everything we can to hurt you. I'm just saying we have they make war, yes, on their neighbors, but they're also making war on their own people in a certain way. And like I said, Hellenization was the thing back then, but now it's this unenlightened anti-Christian stuff that is basically kind of it's an offshoot of the urban culture of America. American urban culture has turned into this monstrosity that they call woke, whatever. It's an inappropriate word for it. It's just unenlightened anti-Christianity. Which is, I call it unenlightened anti-Christianity because you could have an enlightened anti-Christianity, at least be interesting. At least have interesting things to say. But this is unenlightened anti-Christianity. It's just anti-Christianity for the sake of being bad and being wrong. Like I said, it's just like on this t-shirt, Hey, cast the first stone. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to do. Racism is bad, and anyone who does that deserves to be, beaten senseless. All white supremacists and all this stuff. They don't even exist. There are a few of them, I guess. They're not even really white supremacists anymore, They're mostly just white identity. I still get messages from people. They never think of themselves as white supremacists. I never did. But it's essentially white supremacy. White identity. It definitely is. Because like saying, we are the God's chosen people. We're the Jews. So we're the supreme race. Not that Jews are supposed to be the supreme race, but it's almost like that, all right? Why is it so important to remember that we're really Israel, us white folks, which I don't believe. Right? What is our advantage? Paul already answers this question. What advantage hath the Jew? Chiefly that to them were committed the oracles of God. You've got all the chief advantages that the Jews had. What do you think, that being a genetic descendant from some Jew who betrayed God 4,000 years, or was it 3,000 years ago almost? 2,500 years ago? 2,500 years ago, some Jew got kicked out of Israel because he was an idolater, and you are somehow related to that guy, and you think that means something. It might mean something, but it's not very much. Not very much on the ground. Like I said, that's like what means something is, how do you treat your neighbor? When you get angry, how do you deal with it with other people? Do you just crap your anger onto people? I sometimes do. I actively work on not doing. It matters how you behave. And that's a lot more important. It's a lot more important than a lot of the things, the content of what they believe. Like, do you know about the angels that sinned? Why don't you tell them about the angels? I'll tell you what, though we are an angel from heaven, preach any other gospel than what we have received, I'm not going to give any heed to that. So what do we need to know about angels? That they're coming? Well, maybe so. But that is precious. Like somehow, like if they came and started having sex with women, people would be like, oh, this is wonderful. And Christians would be deceived because they don't know. Don't know what? What we need to know is how to do right when everything tells you to do wrong. how to stand up against evil when everyone else is doing the evil thing. That's not something you're going to get from knowing about a lot of stuff. There's not a lot of things that are going to help you to find the moral fiber and the faith to stand up to a temptation like we're going to see in the last days. If we should see those days. If we should see those days. But even now, I'm saying, it's like, even now in the world, we see countless examples of men following the same wicked path, and transgression is certainly filling up. It's getting a lot worse, right? Because I think, even in the days of Sodom, we're beginning to make them blush. It's pretty hard to make Sodom blush, though, really. That's kind of, I don't think so. I think they'd be like, nah, you don't make us blush. I mean, when you're raping strangers who come in to your town, again, you be the banana. Sometimes, Okay, so he understands dark sentences, hard things. He understands secrets, dark sentences. I don't know what that means precisely. I mean, what kind of secrets? Is it the dark sayings that because dark sayings are things that are not easy to understand. This is a dark saying. It doesn't necessarily imply like an evil thing, but in that sense, I think, what is an understanding dark sense? I mean, it could be something like, it could be insight on evil, though. Things that should stay hidden. This is the kind of thing I would almost like to talk to a rabbi about, what he thinks about dark sentences. What does that mean to them? Should I look it up as a separate thing here? I think I will really quick. I've used up all my time. Oh, well. We will finish this chapter, though. I'm going to go a little later. Dark sentences. Yeah, it means a riddle, an enigmatic, perplexing saying or question. Dark sentences is one word in Hebrew. And so, basically what I said. An enigmatic, perplexing saying or question. Perplexing. And I tell you what, there's a lot of ways to understand dark sentences. Like, how do we make a lot of money? That's a conundrum. Right? Oh, I know how we make a lot of money. I know. We lie, we cheat, we steal. There's a lot of different ways you can characterize something as being a riddle, a problem. Also, it indicates, it implies sort of he would know how to solve problems. He understands riddles. He can unravel things. And that's one of the things that he will be. His power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and prosper in practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. There's too much here. I'm not going to get to finish. We will go into chapter 9 tomorrow. I'm going to make sure we do that, because it's like I didn't mean to. I don't know. I think I'm allowing myself to get distracted a lot in this. I think I like it in the morning better. But where are we here? Division. Okay, that's there. Okay, so we'll start with this idea because I want to think about this. I've been thinking about it, but his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. There's easy low-hanging fruit we can reach. Okay, does that mean God's power? Does that mean people power? Does that mean he gets his power from somewhere else? But he is mighty, but not by his own power. Well, that may mean that other people put him in power. He is placed in power. He does not get power from taking it, but it's given to him. And that would make sense, because if Antichrist appears, he speaks great things, and people just start giving him power. That's what I think it's referring to. He will not have to take over. By peace, he will destroy many. He will destroy wonderfully, it says. Which means, again, that sounds like weird, like he's saying he's destroy wonderfully, like he's being sarcastic or something. But I think it means in a way that causes one to wonder. Because that word means to be surpassing. Wonderfully means it's like a word that causes something to become exclamatory. Like to be surpassing or extraordinary. He will do surpassing, extraordinary destruction. Extraordinary, meaning out of the ordinary. He will destroy a lot, but also not in the normal way you think of destruction. Like it says, by peace shall destroy many. You think about like the way, and it doesn't necessarily mean, he's not killing people. Arnold Murray used to say that, my old teacher. I definitely don't think Satan's going to be like this gentle little lamb. That might be at first, or the face he shows to certain people, right? But he is a fierce countenanced king, right? With a mouth speaking great things, and blasphemy against God, all that from Revelation. And he's going to receive power from men, and he's going to be really good at destroying in whatever way we want to see, because destroying can take on a lot of different connotations, right? People can be destroyed financially. People can be destroyed by their reputation being destroyed. We can destroy physical things like buildings and such. Also just by the fact of them worshiping him on a certain level, they are being destroyed because they are worshiping the devil through the Antichrist and thereby condemning themselves and receiving the mark of the beast and all that. You could say he destroys them by them following him. The destruction he brings about in that way. I mean, and that's the worst thing of all. He shall prosper and practice and destroy the mighty and the holy people. And that's what he's destroying, ultimately. It's to destroy us. He will defeat us with words first. We will fight him with our words, and the world will be convinced. Just like with coronavirus, I could yell all I want. The only difference is that Satan will take note and come and kill us eventually, right? He's going to convince the world that he's God against all of our pleading, against all of everything we could possibly say. And we will have a mouth and wisdom that our gainsayers will not be able to resist or gainsay, but neither will they believe us. They won't speak better necessarily, but we're going to lose, Just like the pandemic, you couldn't reason with these people. You couldn't talk to people because as soon as you started talking about it, it was like tribal. They just shut their ears. You couldn't talk to people about it. Some people you could, but if they were in that opposing view, you couldn't. Not the brainwashed people. You can't talk to them because they think you're brainwashed. What? You don't recognize God as God? What's wrong with you? God finally shows up on earth and brings peace to the world and is helping us do all this cool stuff and technology and everything, and you are resisting him? And also, remember, when you resist Satan, you run the risk of being killed by his followers also. Because people just get angry. And that time, who knows? Not early on. Early on, you get angry, maybe beat up, who knows? It says you will be beaten in their synagogues, And by that, not the synagogues of the Jews, the synagogues of Satan. Because Satan will have his little gathering places. That's what a synagogue means. It's Greek, synagoge. It means literally gathered together. Whereas church, ecclesia, means called out. He will have his little gatherings because they have to worship the beast. And like Antiochus, he made an image of Zeus in the temple of God, offered a pig on the altar, defiled the sanctuary, and then died as a normal man. He didn't go into the bottomless pit or chained or anything. It didn't go that way. So we'll pick it up at verse 25, and then we'll continue into chapter 9. And they're they're connected, so it's fine. Maybe we'll just read both chapters as a fun, segue into it, because I do like reading it again. Anyways, thanks for joining me today. Sorry if it was a little rough study. I maybe shouldn't have had a study today, but we'll be back tomorrow, Lord willing. Until then, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. You remember that.
And I stood upon the sand.